Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. My name is Clara. I'm the Marketing Communication Manager at Beekast, and today I'm so excited to share with you all of our new and most recent updates when it comes to Beekast. And there is so much that we're going to cover today. So strap in and let's get started. While everyone joins us, I'm just going to go ahead and share a little welcome message in the Livestorm chat. So make sure to get into the chat, ask questions, talk to each other. It's really the best place to do it. And if you do have any questions along the way, I'll make sure to read the chat and make some pauses just so that I can always reply and provide the answers that you need. All right. Hello. Okay, great. So there's a lot to cover today in this webinar, and we're going to start with a couple of basic updates that are still really interesting to look into. The first one, I think everyone's going to be very excited about this one, and I'm actually showing it on my screen as we speak. So it is the new image in the instructions of an activity. So before in Beekast, you couldn't add images like this in the instructions of an activity. You could only add images in the options, so in the possible answers. And these images, these pictures, were usually pretty small. You had to click on it to make them bigger. And so it just wasn't as useful to some of our facilitators, some of our trainers and coaches who, when they're doing training sessions, would like to provide further context and additional information through visuals, which work really well in a training format. So using this case study, what I did is to show you this update is create a quick quiz where, as you can see here, we have an picture of a wolf, and it's just a really great way to use the Beekast activities in a slightly different way. Instead of using just text, you can finally provide a more visual and dynamic aspect to your activity. So let me show you how this new update works. And it's really exciting because we created this thanks to your feedback. We had so many users telling us that they wanted to provide bigger pictures and visuals in the instructions part of an activity. And that's exactly what we did. So let me show you. If I go to the top of my screen here in the left column and click on Add a Slide, I can immediately add any kind of activity that I want. And this new feature, this image in the instructions, is available on all of our activities. So here, let's just create another quiz, but I could do it in survey, I could do it on pin and image, whiteboard form, whatever activity you decide to do, this feature is available. So going to create a quiz, and as you can tell here, I can ask my question. And here in the add instructions, right underneath the title, if I click on it, you can see that there's a new little tag. And so as always, I can go ahead and provide instructions. So let's just add a little bit of text here. If I confirm that, it appears at the center of my screen automatically. And up until now, this has always existed in Beekast, but now what you can do is you can go ahead and click on this little square right here, this little rectangle on the right side of the instructions. And when you click on this rectangle, you're going to be able to add a picture. So there are 3 ways in Beekast to add and import visuals into an activity. And so some of you may already be pretty familiar with it. You can either upload an image that's already on your computer. So let's say you're doing a very specific training exercise. You already have an image in mind. You've created it in Canva, for example. You've edited it. You can go ahead and import it directly from your computer. If you have a link from any website or just a URL with this picture, you can go ahead and add it here from link to an image. And then here, just to do it very simply today for you, we're going to go ahead and search for an image thanks to our library bank. All right, so let's say here I want to choose an animal. I'll go ahead and pick this little fox right here. Click on save, and automatically my fox appears. Now, when you do have instructions right here, when you have the text instructions, then your image will be on the left side. And if I were to remove these instructions, my image would then be centered. It would be big enough for everyone to see. And it's just very nice to add in an activity. So now I'll let you decide how you could use this, but there are so many use cases possible. Training exercises are just one of them, but quizzes, vocabulary, kind of identifying an image and then asking questions underneath it. There's just 100 ways of doing this. All right, so that's it for the first big change, big update in Beekast recently. This is something that came out during the summer, and we were really excited to share it with you because it really comes from you as our users. So thanks again for that. And just, keep in mind that if you do have these types of feedback along the way, it's always great to reach out to our support team and tell us about them, because our product team is always listening in, and it might just make it into the roadmap. So there you go. Here's the proof. All right. So now the second update that I want to share with you, and this is a pretty fun one, is we've done a slight update to our survey activity. So let me go to a survey activity right here. Here you have a survey activity, and as you can tell, you have everything in the order that I have created my activities. So happy, tired, zen, all of these moods and emotions, these are done in a specific order, right? Now, what we've done is we've decided to have a dynamic way of showing results. So before, if, for example, 3 people voted for tired, but 2 people voted for happy, then tired would stay where it is. And it's just up to the facilitator to keep an eye on how the survey is evolving, and to make sure that they can comment on it as the survey evolves. Now, to make this even faster, quicker, simpler for the facilitator to be able to interact with these results in real time, what we've done is now the results are done in a dynamic way where they're automatically going to rank each other from the most answers, the most votes in the survey to the least amount of votes. And this is what it'll look like. So let me just launch this activity and keep an eye on the Zen emotion that I'm sharing. This is the third option. If someone were to vote for it, see how it automatically moves up. That's because this is now the option with the most answers, with the most votes. So in a survey now, when you're answering in real time, you'll be able to automatically see what are the top rated answers along the way, and you'll be able to kind of interact with those results in a really easy and engaging way. So this is a super fun way to make our survey activity evolve, and I think it's just a really interesting time for facilitators because we're always looking for ways to make our activities even more engaging, even more dynamic. And sometimes it's hard to keep up with all of the results happening in real time, just trying to kind of piggyback off of like an idea or a vote. And here it's just super simple because you'll be able to do it as the survey evolves along the way. All right, so those were kind of the 2 little updates. They're super fun, and I think they'll really help you along the way when you're creating and facilitating Beekast sessions. Now, the third new, I would say, update, and this is just more of a revamping, as you'll see, but we're going to talk a little bit more about the participant and attendance sheet. All right, perfect. So some of you may already know this feature in Beekast. You have the ability to launch an attendance check. This means that at the beginning of my session, at the end of my session, I can launch an attendance check and see who is actively present in my session. So I'll show you what this looks like right away. If I click on attendance check right here, click on start, and let me just go back to show you what I clicked on. To access an attendance check, you have to go in the right column where you have a lot of facilitation features and click on participants. Now the participants tab is the space where you'll get to see all of the participants that are in your sessions. The ones with the green dots are active participants in your sessions, people who are connected. So for example, Gabriel right now is not in my session, but he has joined it or has been invited to join it. Whereas me, Clara, as you can tell, that's me, and Charlotte are currently present in my session today. But I want to know if Charlotte is actually participating and taking part in the session actively, or if she's gone off and had a coffee. And so I feel like she's in the session because the green dot says that she's connected, but maybe she's actually not here and following along. So the best way to monitor this is with the attendance check. This is a super handy feature if you're doing training, if you need to have, for example, an attendance record in education courses, or for example, even in meetings, if you need to keep track of who was there from the beginning to the end of a meeting. So the attendance sheet used to be a little bit hidden away in this participants tab. It wasn't as easy to know that it existed. And now what we've done is simply kind of revamped the overall design of this feature to make it really accessible to you as an owner and facilitator of the session. So let me show you how this works. I'm going to go ahead and click on attendance check start. When I click on it, it'll tell me exactly what this does. So check attendance at the start and end of the session, and retrieve sign-in times for each person directly in the session's Excel report. So you'll be able to download this, this report at the end of your session, and you'll get all of the attendance times and sign-in times of each participant in the session. So as you can tell, each participant who has signed into your Beekast session will have 5 minutes to confirm their attendance, which should be plenty. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my attendance check request. And once I've clicked on this, you can see that Charlotte, who is connected, she signed into the session today. She has the green dot. These two dots have appeared. And as you can tell, an attendance check request is in progress. And Charlotte now has about 4 minutes and 45 seconds to answer. So I'm going to go ahead from Charlotte's point of view. You can't see this, but it's on my screen. I'm going to go ahead and confirm that I am here. So I've clicked on I'm here. It's just a button from the participant's point of view that appears on their Beekast session. And as you can tell immediately, this little green dot has appeared, which lets me know as a facilitator that my participant has replied present at the start of the session. And now once those 5 minutes are up, and once I've gone through the entire content of my Beekast session, I'll be able to launch the attendance check end. And that's when the second dot will have to be colored in, because then my participant will have to also reply present at the end of the session. And that's how I get those sign-in times. All right, so this is just a really cool feature for those of you who may not have known it. Really advise you to go ahead and take a look and start using it, because it's just very, very useful. So this is the, let's say, latest update when it comes to the design in Beekast and making this just more accessible to all of our users. And one final thing that I want to leave you with, for those of you who may want to try this feature and don't understand why it's not accessible to you, that's because the attendance sheet can only be accessible if your Beekast session is set up in email identification mode. So as you know, in Beekast, people who join your sessions are going to join, you can decide how they are identified in your session. And so when you're creating your session, you're going to decide if they're identified through email, through avatar, or through username. Email is the one that we selected today. As you can tell, this lets me know that I do have access to an attendance check request, because in email mode, all of my participants are identified with their Beekast account, which is linked to an email address. Whereas in avatar and username mode, I don't use their email address to identify them. Avatar mode, I'm identifying them using Beekast avatars, which is an animal and an adjective. So curious panda, happy elephant, you get the idea. This is an anonymous mode, basically. And of course, as the word entails, anonymous means I won't be able to launch an actual attendance check because I can't identify my users. Same goes for username. Username means that anybody can join my session, just like in avatar mode. My participants do not need to have a Beekast account, but when they're joining, instead of having an avatar name, they're going to be able to choose their name. So they'll be able to type in Clara, for example, and they'll be identified as Clara throughout the session. So they pick the name. But once again, because they're not being identified through their Beekast account, then we don't have an email address to trace it back to, which means that the attendance check is not available. So make sure if you do want to use the attendance check feature in your Beekast session, make sure that your Beekast session is always set up to be in email mode when it comes to participant login and identification. All right, now that we've covered that, let's get to a couple quick updates and then we'll get to the major new feature in Beekast that I want to show you today. So very quick update. Some of you may already have seen this. We used to have a section in the facilitation features right here in this right column that used to be called tabs. And tabs just felt kind of confusing. People didn't really know what it meant, what it referred to. So we've just made it super easy. We've changed the name. And that's basically the only change that you need to remember here. The feature stays exactly the same. So now tabs is called resources. And that really makes sense because that's exactly what it is. It is a space dedicated to resources you would want to share with your participants. And you can decide what type of additional resources you're sharing with them. Is it the session's agenda for the day? Is it a specific piece of information with a link or just text or additional info? It can be a list, for example, if you have multiple facilitators, multiple people that are going to be facilitating the session, you can go ahead and provide them with a list of these hosts. So up to you to decide. You can also share files like PDFs, documents that people can then download on their end. What I've done today is I've just added a fake information section right here in my resources. If I click on information, as you can tell, I can access this fake information that I've created. What's super important about this feature, what I like about it, is that you decide if this resource is visible or not to your participants. So let's say you're a teacher and you're providing your students with a couple quizzes just to make sure that they've acquired the necessary knowledge that you shared with them, and you're kind of testing their knowledge for the day. You can create the quizzes in Beekast, and then you can hide, for example, a document with all of the answers and provide them with like additional content from the class and additional course material. And of course, you don't want to reveal this straight away because you don't want your participants to have access to these documents. So you're going to make it invisible. And then maybe at the end of the quiz, at the end of everything, maybe 2 days later, you'll make it accessible for them. And when they come back into the session, they'll see all of the documents that you wanted to share with them here. So it's just a really neat way to share information and kind of have a resource hub within a Beekast session. All right. Final little change is when it comes to adding collaborators in Beekast. So in Beekast, you have your participants. These are people who are joining your Beekast session and who do not have access. They won't be able to access anything else. They can't create an activity. They can't change anything in your session, change the settings or anything like that. They're just here to engage and answer and take part in the activities. And of course, then you have collaborators. Collaborators are people that you're going to invite to help you, the owner of the session, facilitate and create the overall Beekast session. To add a collaborator, you click on the share button right here at the top part of my screen. By clicking on share, you will then have a section dedicated to collaborators where you can invite people to prepare, manage settings, present the session. They can also download the results of the session. So it's just a really nice way to collaborate and make it easier to have to work in a team when it comes to Beekast. And as you can tell here, I've added my colleague Gabriel. So that's something that I know. But in Beekast, up until now, when you added someone in your Beekast session, it wasn't always easy to know if the person actually received the invitation because there wasn't really a status check. And there are multiple reasons why somebody wouldn't be able to get an invite in Beekast. One of these reasons is because the person's email has, for example, an error in it. You accidentally typed the wrong email, or just there was a tiny little typo or anything like that. So let's see what this looks like. If I were to create an email that, first of all, is either has a typo or just is an email that where this person does not have a Beekast account. Before, you wouldn't have been able to know this. Now, with this minor update that we've done where we've added status checks, you will be able to be notified of this. So let's see what it looks like. I'm going to create some kind of email address right here. So fake email at company.com. I click on add. I want to add this person. Immediately, I get a tag that lets me know that this person has no account. This is either a fake email address or simply it's an email address that exists somewhere in the world, but there is no actual Beekast account related to this email address. So I can immediately know this. And as you can tell, I also get a little text here, a little information letting me know that these invitations could not be sent. So going back in, that's the first step. I'll type it back in here so you can see once again what it looks like, because I see in the comment section that somebody wanted me to do it again. So I will be doing that again. Click on add, immediately no account. Now, to add a collaborator in your session, you have to have a paid account. But to be added as a collaborator, in order to be a collaborator in a session, you also have to have a certain level of a paid account in Beekast. This is our starter plan. It is the first available plan in our paid plans in Beekast, and you at least need to have a starter account, a starter plan to be able to be added as a collaborator. And let me show you what this looks like if you have a free account. So I'm just going to type in my personal email. This is an email address where I do have a Beekast account dedicated to this email address, but I'm on a free plan with this email address. So when I click on add, I'll have another status update letting me know that, okay, this email address does exist. This person does have a Beekast account, but they do not have the right offer level. So they're not on the right plan. And this means that usually they're on a free plan or just a smaller plan that doesn't allow them access to this feature. So now it's a lot easier to track this when you're looking to add in bulk collaborators in a Beekast session. You will now be able to know immediately when somebody has received an invitation. For example, Gabriel, who was added without any problem in my Beekast session. I don't have a specific tag letting me know this didn't happen. So I know that Gabriel was able to be added as a collaborator in my session. And then I have other status checks that allows me to know why this person couldn't have been added to my Beekast session. Final way of checking if my collaborator was added in my Beekast session is going back to that participants tab right here and seeing that Gabriel is in my participant list. So he is somebody who can actively enter my session. And when I check on share, I also see that Gabriel is a collaborator, which allows me to know that he has access and he has collaborator level access to my session. All right, now this is also a perfect segue back to our attendance sheet because those 5 minutes are up. And we're just going to go ahead and imagine that we have reached the end of a session. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch the attendance check end. Go ahead and launch the end of session attendance check. As you can tell, my 5-minute timer starts automatically, just like before. My participant will then get another little notification asking them to verify that they are present in the session. And I'm going to go ahead and click on I'm here. And there we have it, that second little green dot. So I now know that Charlotte was present and actively there because she was able to answer at the beginning of my session that she was here. And she also answered at the end of the session that she was here. So this will allow me to track how much time Charlotte spent in the Beekast session and her sign-in times and sign-out times for the session. So super handy. At the end of these 4 minutes and 17 seconds, this download button will appear, and this will allow me to download the Excel report with the sign-in times. All right, we have gone through all of the major, let's say, small updates when it comes to Beekast in the last few weeks. So super exciting stuff as you've seen. What I want us to dive into and the end of this webinar, and we're really great on time, so stick with me, is a major update when it comes to providing access to your participants within a session and ensuring that you are securing your Beekast session as much as possible. So as you know, in a Beekast session, you're going to have content that can sometimes be confidential, content that can be sensitive sometimes. And a Beekast session can be accessible or not. Usually in the term that we use today, we say your Beekast session is opened or your Beekast session is closed. As you can see here, the current status of my Beekast session is that it is open, which means that my participants have access to this Beekast session. Because my session has not been set up with any additional safety measures, for example, here, when I go here, I can see, let me just go to my configuration. As you can see here, we're in email mode. And that means that I can access specific restrictions and safety measures. So for example, I could restrict this session with a password to make sure that not just anybody with the session link can enter my Beekast session. I can also restrict access to a specific domain, which would mean that, for example, anyone, if I'm doing something with my team at Beekast, I'll just add the beekast.com domain as the only domain name where participants can enter. So if you're entering with a Gmail, with another company domain, you won't be able to access my session because you don't have the right domain. And then I can also restrict it to a very specific set of emails. So by doing this, I could just say, okay, only this person, and this person have access to my Beekast session. Anybody that doesn't log into the session with this email, they can't see my Beekast session. This is already a great way of ensuring that your data is safe, but to help you go even further in making sure that your content stays confidential, we have gone ahead and added an automatic close time to your Beekast session. So what this means is that before, your session would remain open eternally. You had to manually decide to close your session. What we've seen and what we've heard from key accounts and really different types of users and customers throughout the time is that a lot of people never remember to close their sessions manually. So we have hundreds or thousands of sessions that remain open for years. And that means years of content, years of data and confidential information that remains open. And with a simple link, because as you know, to share a Beekast session, you can either share a session code, you can share a QR code, or you can just share the public session link. And that means that anybody who's had the link in the past could just reshare the link to somebody else, somebody outside of your organization, and that person could possibly enter your Beekast session and get access to all of this confidential information. So this is something that we really thought important, especially with everything happening today with GDPR and data restrictions, where we want to make sure that your data remains safe where it belongs. That means in your sessions and nowhere else. So this means that now, today, this launched yesterday, by the way, this is just a brand new feature. We have added a close date. This means that automatically any new session created in Beekast in your account right now is going to automatically close, and is going to be closed in 20 days. So when you create a new session in Beekast, by default, that session is going to be open and accessible to participants for 20 days. And at the end of those 20 days, then your participants will no longer be able to access that session. Of course, if your session is closed in 20 days, and on the 25th day, you want to open that session back up, you can totally do that manually. And I'll show you how we can do that. But automatically, we wanted to remove that barrier where you have to go in and remind yourself to close your sessions. So we're just doing it for you. And we've automated this to make it as simple as possible. Of course, you remain the owner of your session. You can still access your session. Your session is not going to be deleted. It is not going to be filed away somewhere. All of your sessions remain in your workspace, accessible by you at any given time. As long as you are the owner of the session, you can go ahead and reopen that session and make it accessible to participants anytime you want. But just remember that those sessions are going to close in a given amount of days. So let me show you what this looks like. As you can see here, I've actually changed the default setting of my session's close date. So here today, by default, for any of the users, any of the participants in this webinar, keep in mind that your settings, your setting default is going to be 20 days. For those of you with a paid account, the existing sessions that you've already created, though you're going to have a 60-day period. This gives you a little bit more wiggle room and time to kind of determine which sessions should be closed earlier, which sessions should remain open a little longer. So you'll get 60 days for existing sessions and 20 days for new sessions. Of course, some of you here may tell me, I don't really care about 20 days. My sessions can close every 7 days, for example, or, oh, I need my sessions to stay open for 100 days. Well, you can change that. And let me show you how to do that. So in order to do this, you're going to go into your account settings. To do this, go ahead and click on your little person here, your little avatar. This is me. This is my account space. Go ahead and click on my account. And as you can see, you now have a tab right here called Session Duration Management. So by clicking on Session Duration Management, you will be able to set the default duration during which a session is going to remain open. And this means if a session is open, participants can access it. So here, as you can see, I've already set my session duration to 70 days, but of course, it's totally up to you. You could set it to 50 days. For example, let's go ahead and do 50. Automatically, these changes are going to be saved. And then when you go back into your sessions, you will always be able to see how long until your sessions close. So for this new session here, I had changed it to October 13th. For this session here, it's December 1st. So you can also decide how long your sessions are staying open given the time frame that you've allowed yourself in your account settings. So here, if I wanted to change this, you have it right here, open until December 1st. And I can decide, hey, I'm actually okay with closing my session a little earlier. So November 1st, and then there you have it. Your session will automatically close on November 1st. You can also, if you're already in a session, you can, of course, access your account from your session. It doesn't have to be from your workspace. Just click on your profile right here, click on my account. Bam, here we are. We're back in the Session Duration Management tab. Now, what about sessions that have already closed, right? I can already see some people that may panic. I see one comment telling me, like, what's going to happen when my sessions are closed? Okay, so no worries about that. Let's say this session right here, this session is going to be closed, right? It's automatically closed. It's been 20 days. This session is now unavailable to participants who would want to access it. So this means that it is still available to me because I am the owner of this session. So I can, of course, still access the session's content. I can still export my results. I can still access all of the facilitation settings. I can still go into the dedicated features. I can really still enter my session. As you can see here, I've clicked on it and I still have access to all of my content. I can still go into my results. I can still generate meeting reports. I just can't get participants to join the session because my session is currently closed. Of course, if I want to make this accessible again, I'll just go ahead and disable participant access. And see, by default, my session is going to remain open for the next 50 days. So it'll close on November 11th. And let's just say I close this again, and you want to do this super quickly. You don't want to even go into your session to do this. Then see the session that's closed here, click on those three little dots, and then just reopen it. And there you go. Your session will reopen and it'll automatically close 50 days later, which is our account setting by default. And it'll just close on November 11th. So super easy. Your sessions aren't going anywhere. We're just ensuring that they are closed and made inaccessible to participants who would want to share links between each other and reveal your content. So just make sure to change those account settings if you need to. And for those of you where 20 days works, then you don't really have to do anything more. Your sessions are just going to automatically close. Your content will be safe forever. And that's a headache less for you. All right. There were some questions along the way, but I tried to answer them kind of reading your comments. So that was for opening and closing sessions. I hope this was just insightful for everyone and that it was clear enough. I'm not seeing any further questions, so I think this was clear enough for everyone to understand. It's a big new feature for us because it's really in line with everything we're trying to do safety-wise at Beekast. So just keep that in mind. And if you have any questions, of course, our help center is always there to help you. We have our support team that's available on this orange a little button right here. And if you want to just contact them and enter the chat, go ahead and do that. Ask away your questions. They'll be super happy to help you understand all of these new features. And of course, you also have these new features that are communicated to you directly via the news tab in your knowledge base area. So you can also learn all about default access duration in this little update right here. All right. That's it for today. 35 minutes in, only 5 minutes too long for this webinar, but as you can tell, there was a lot to cover today. As always, I'm super happy to have been able to present to you all of these new features and product updates. If you have any additional questions, make sure to check in our YouTube channel. A replay of this webinar will be made available to you, so you'll be able to rewatch this, share it with colleagues, share it with anybody that you think should find this information relevant. And yeah, make sure to follow us. Make sure to check in on these What's New webinars. They happen every month, and we're always happy to share what's new in Beekast. Until then, see you next time, and I hope everyone has a splendid day. See you soon. Bye-bye.